Okay, well, let me think. Well, this doesn't look bad. I'm just testing this out because I was banned from Facebook temporarily for something which they said was a mistake with this computer software judging something I wrote to be hate when it wasn't. And then when I appealed it, they said it wasn't, but I'm still banned for 30 days if it was, and they will not lift that. It's also true that I have been discriminated against by Facebook repeatedly, banned for what they allegedly call hate, even when some of it's just a quotation of some hateful thing someone else said that I clearly am not espousing. And there's nothing you can do, and you can't even call anyone up and talk to them. That same thing happened with Twitter, where I'm well, I think this is interesting. I had my experiences in the Harvard math department, in particular. I just knew that whatever my math ability was, and it was not the same ability as the like Harvard, they're algebraists or something like that. The Harvard math department, they're more on the algebra side, not the geometry side. And it wasn't it funny how the one mathematician that was more geometrist was Raoul Bat, who is a more Arab type, where his socially speaking, he is more like an Italian, and the algebraists were more like, I don't know. There is this distinction between the hunter-gatherer type of human who is athletic, good at dancing, good at music, and the more sedentary agriculture, human adept to agriculture, where they not good at dancing, not musical, no sense of rhythm, and super cerebral in this can't see the whole picture way. And that's definitely, there was that distinction. And funny thing is, I even took a course, Math 21 at Harvard, where he did this teaching style that was different, and it was catered to someone who you show them the big picture first and then fill in the details afterwards. Of course, it was perfect for me. And then the other type that's more, they know that there's two different types of brains when it comes to math. They know that. It's obvious they know that, but they will not say that publicly. And then, of course, I did not have the right social environment to work properly for most of the time. But when I did, I was brilliant. And I had several conversations. Well, instead of deciding that, if I'm at Harvard and I'm not happy, then Harvard's the best and I'm inferior, I was like, no, I'm not inferior. They are. Well, I mean, my mother had already told me enough about corruption at Harvard. So I objected. Well, besides which, I knew that I had an ability at math that wasn't being fully. So anyway, the interesting thing was the attitude I got from them was, no, we have our system. It's rigid, and we are not going to make adjustments. And they don't do it like this in Europe. They're much more willing to cater to your individuality in Europe, as well as they're willing to have the teachers there mentor you. The teachers who are the adults mentor you, whereas at Harvard, oh no, you have to go study with other students. And if you don't study with other students, you do it by yourself, you're going to do poorly, because that's the way math works. You have to have a study group in math for it to work, for your brain to work. You have to do it face to face and all that. It won't work. And which means that's the perfect environment think about it, for a minority in math who is excluded. And I kind of was excluded there. And when I wasn't included, it was a brown-skinned Arab type who included me, and then discovered I was really good. And then I started helping him well, the moment and then, then a study group coalesced around me because when I was talking to the students in the right way, I became super brilliant, and it resulted in them getting their problem sets done much more easily. And it looked like I was teaching a section in a way. It looked like I was teaching them because I would get it so much faster. I would figure it out so much faster than them, and I'd be explaining to them the whole time. And this even included a student in Math 55. And my experience was that all of a sudden in that environment, the moment I start talking out loud, my brain engages, my whole brain engages. Whereas if I tried to study on myself doing books, it doesn't. There's and so I'm not even using the same part of the brain, and whatever part of the brain I was using for most of my math studies wasn't working. Well, it turns out the NFL has been doing race norming, saying that black people are inherently less intelligent than white people. Therefore, if you had a concussion, or if you're going to sue and argue you had a concussion, if you're black, they're going to say, well, no, you don't. No, the football didn't cause it. You're stupid. Yeah. Well, yeah. You know you're stupid. Yeah, you have all these cognitive problems. Well, that's because you're black. That's not because you hit your head, and we are not going to pay. But if you're white, oh no, if you have those issues, obviously you hit your head, and we have to compensate you. That's what they do, and they've been doing this for a long time. And all of academia has been shutting up about it because they have their football programs too, so they cannot. This reminds me of Andrew Sullivan's New Republic and the Bell Curve, where someone named Charles Murray argued that black people seem to inherently do poorly in IQ tests compared to whites. And academia had this whole huge, terrible, that was racism. Except it's a lie that they care that much about racism, because you look at what the NFL, they went along with that all along. And that race norming is and the race norming they did in the NFL is completely ridiculous. Head injuries cause the kind of cognitive issues where, stupid people, I have a head injury, I have head trauma, and the disabilities it causes me are ones where I am super smart, but there are certain things I can't do that stupid people can do. So, stupid people can do all the things I can't do because of my head injury, and I can still do all the smart stuff. So the idea, this race norming is the most ridiculous thing, and this makes me wonder. It made me angry after my experiences in the math department, where I'm consistently telling them, look, I'm not like the other students. I need a different type of environment to do well. And the weird thing was, I sensed that they knew that was true, and they knew how to deprive me of the right environment socially. And they deliberately did, except for a couple of times. Well, I just know one thing with IQ tests. I took a couple of online IQ tests a long time ago, and I got 140 or 150, which is good, or very good. And this was after I had electric shock treatment, brain damage, and stuff. So I might have been done better before that. Now these were only online IQ tests, not official. But I can do online IQ tests now, and I don't want to pay the money to get the score, so I didn't. But what I have to say I notice is that I just know that the written test on paper is not testing. It's not allowing my full brain to engage. And I know from having hooked up with many black men and spoken to black men, I just know they have the same. I just know they're the same in that way. I remember being in this place with a lot of black people, and maybe it was a church, and then there was music, and they didn't just sing, they danced in this very natural way, which white people don't do. And I kind of have that same quality as a musician. You know, it tends, I just have a feeling that with Black people, what if you tried to go do IQ tests, test their IQs, and do an IQ test where it's not a written one? You don't write it all down on a piece of paper. You have someone there showing you the problem, giving you the problem, talking back and forth with you verbally about the problem, so that as they are taking the test, they are engaging verbally with the person, and then watch how they perform and see what happens to the disparities. Of course, I have to say that I know that my brain, it depends on who I'm talking to, how much it'll respond. So yeah, that you're going to have a less, you would have to go do a lot of study. You'd have to go try different types of people and see if it makes a difference. So that would be a very complicated study. But I just think that's what's true with Black people, from having talked to so many of them and hooked up with so many. And I think and they are more likely to have ADD, ADHD, and I know with the written IQ test, it's not measuring my full ability of what I could do if I wasn't in writing. Translating the intellectual task to the on-paper problem in an impersonal, boring environment is going to, my brain doesn't engage fully. Isn't that probably the case with, Black people, and as well as, maybe even Italian and Irish and a lot of the, working class who, well, see, we have a rigged meritocracy here where the current academic elites are at the top. And I just think that if you studied what happens with the IQ disparities more, you would discover that there is something about the whole written IQ test environment that I don't know. I think there's just something there that they know about and are covering up, or like, I mean, this is what appears to be the case with the whole systemic racism thing always, is that they do studies using the mafia to investigate certain matters, such as potential brain differences. And if they discover that the results of the study would prevent the continued exploitation of, Blacks, Hispanics, working class whites, Italians, Irish, and all that, for the way they want to exploit them, unethical medical experiments using the mafia, then they shut it down, and they know the truth, so they know exactly how to avoid doing the type of study that would reveal the truth. They avoid it, and it's almost like, although you should ask, why has no one thought? You could look into certain areas and say, well, with regard to IQs, why has no one thought of that? Like, what about, there's definitely articles out there that talk about how Black communities are more likely to follow oral traditions rather than written traditions. And so you can ask, well, what if you gave IQ tests verbally rather than written? And then what if you even, made it so the race and other stylistic aspects of the person are the same as the subject being tested, or different, and doesn't make a difference in IQ? Or maybe they have it written, but they have a person verbally leading them through it to help activate the brain, part of the brain that's socially dependent upon it, which also another issue is IQ scores have been going up a lot. And in part, I just feel as if school children are spending more and more time in front of doing boring stuff in front of the papers, and I don't know. It's like maybe they're getting higher IQs, and that is just the same as ancient Rome lead poisoning the upper middle class elites. We say it's good, and is it really good? What's it for? I mean, it helps. Does it really measure the best that your brain can do? Children hate school. They hate having to sit still for so long with no opportunity for recess. And I mean, maybe it's necessary, but I mean, if you hate it, that's because it's preventing your brain. It's forcing your brain to develop in one way and preventing it from developing in other ways. There's all sorts of, your brain is plastic, and you're warping it in a certain direction and not in another direction. So, maybe higher IQs are a result of people getting a lot of book smarts at the expense of things we don't know officially because we haven't measured them. But I don't know. You have to be philosophical and question what's important in life. But I do think. So I made I made a remark. Well, even if the black IQs are less, how are they selecting for the population? Because I mean that's the same thing with gender in the brain. They're asking, are there gendered brain differences? And of course, like in the same academic elites who try to say there's no differences between men and women's brains, it's all socially constructed, are willing to agree with gay men that homosexuality is not a choice but biological. That's instantly contradictory. So below the waist, it's all biological, and then above the waist, every other pursuit you want to do, gender didn't. Your brain, the gender development of your brain had played no role. I mean, that's not scientific. But what else was I thinking? 18 minutes. Huh. Yeah, so well, yeah, now when with the NFL, academia has a motive to engage in academic fraud. So then we have to ask, how are the black people selected for in the population when they study IQ differences in the brain? What type of black people are they getting, and where are they getting them from? And and did they know, or did smart academics know? I mean, when they did those studies, what were the legal issues facing the NFL as well as all the college football programs? Is it possible that the scholars doing the studies were doing them amid a legal climate where black football players potentially might be inclined to sue in a manner that would raise insurance rates? And did that cause academia? Did that cause little whispers to go here and there where they go say, well, we really want black IQs to be as low as possible? Um, And systemic racism is tied to the economy. And where people are placed in the economy generally seems to be a result of ghettoization occurring that is based on people, human beings, pretty accurately categorizing people, where you just recognize what type of person that person is, and you hire the right fit for the job, and you don't hire the wrong fit for the job. And people are smart that way. And a good example is if you studied affect, verbal affect, you will find that, well, and here is where the gay men, it's not a choice to be gay. Well, then would they try to say that it is a choice, that other aspect of gender that gets expressed with regard to gayness in different ways? Is it a choice? And is it socially constructed how gay men talk? Those who talk in a queenie way, they were brainwashed. See, that is so ridiculous. You know, you read women who want to be traditional gender role women and housewives and raise children and be nurturing are just brainwashed to be that way because society said that was nice. And so society said that was nice, and they just decided to like all that stuff because society said that was nice and they liked that. Well, even gay people say that queenie, flaming gay men are a turnoff. Most gay men like masculine men. They want them to be straight acting. They'd say no flamers in their profile. So there is zero part of society that likes queenie gay men. Sometimes you can be gay and have a somewhat feminine lilt or feminine quality to your voice, or you're kind of effeminate in a nice way, and a few of them are, but they're the queenie flaming ones where they're effeminate and they're halfway effeminate, halfway masculine, and it's all wrong and it jars. No one likes it. Absolutely no. Society did not approve of it, and no, they were not brainwashed by society into talking that way because society liked it. And so is that therefore hardwired into the brain how people talk? Well, guess what? Go into the psychology profession, listen to how the men there talk, the women there talk. Go to the different majors and colleges, who majors in what and how do they talk. The science majors versus the humanities majors, how do they talk? There's big differences in how they talk. It's like going to Provincetown and listening to all the varieties of gayness, of how they talk gay, you know. So, yeah, that's kind of where am I left? So yeah, Twitter's saying Twitter's banning me for hateful conduct, for questioning whether the lower IQ scores were not a result of academic fraud to benefit the NFL and their football programs, which is outrageous. But I mean, they've done this before, and so has Facebook. And I appealed it, and it didn't matter. They're not going to change it, and they're also not going to even talk to me about it. I would have to go. I could try to appeal it again and include more stuff, but I don't know what that's going to do. I think they're just going to refuse to. Because in the past, it's not. In the past, when I've been banned, it has nothing to do with what I say. It's obviously not hate, and they're going to say it is. And also, to be honest, I was stalked and harassed. I was actually ganged up on myself, treated hatefully myself before being banned. And those, of course, every single one of those people got away with it. So this is like Twitter working for the mafia, engaging in retribution against me. in a manner that's against their own rules. Now, how do I turn it off? End stream.